Hello Facebook and YouTube, it is I, Nathan, here with my good buddy and very frequent collaborator, Mr. Morgan Lauff. And we are here today to do a very interesting video, isn't that right, bud?
It is. You know, a lot of people have been, of course, playing, and in the last month and a half, playing the new Indiana Jones video game, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. A lot of the reviews and a lot of everything that this game has been getting is, you know, it just feels like another film.
It feels like what would have happened if George and Steven had gone the let's do another sequel but make it a prequel route and have, you know, the story leading up to Last Crusade.
Right.
This very much could have happened in, like, say, 1990 or 1991, but in that, it has brought up a very wonderful conversation point of how does one cosplay Great Circle? Because realistically, what it is Raiders gear. But being the indie people that we are, it's not that simple.
Right.
There are so many small individual details that make the Great Circle gear similar but different to Raiders.
It stands out on its own, I would argue. I think the amalgamation of the gear and of the props and everything like that, while they pay homage to the original trilogy, I really believe that the gear that Indy wears in this game stands out on its own.
Yeah.
And, you know, just like you were saying, it definitely is an extension of Raiders, but, you know, there are, to people like us, there are such a high level of idiosyncrasies that we already and immediately noticed upon seeing the trailers, upon playing the game, upon how just even though it's a 3D rendering of a character, you could tell how the jacket drapes, you could tell how the hat moves, and you could tell how the whip looks and everything like that. And, you know, first and foremost, I want to say absolute shout out and credit to the makers and producers of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Bethesda Softworks and Machine Games, because they went to an extreme level of ensuring that even though the moments we do see a full-bodied Indy, which is mainly the cutscenes, or on those very rare third-person shots when you're moving across certain obstacles, they wanted to make sure that when you saw him, you were like, oh yeah, that's Indiana Jones.
Yep. It was a game made by fans for the fans. So, basically, this video now, as long-winded as we have made it goes into basically how you can finesse your already existing indie gear, or if you're on the hunt for Great Circle gear specifically, look in your closet of Indiana Jones cosplay, see what you already have, and we could also help you with the stuff that we have that we see as best represented to our knowledge and sight, what we think is the best representation of a Great Circle piece of indie gear.
So the first we're going to talk about is the hat. Now this is something that a lot of people in the community have already begun talking about, you know, because it was shown in a lot of the behind the scenes featurettes for Great Circle that they 3D scanned existing replica pieces of the Indiana Jones gear so that when it was put onto the 3D model, it would look as accurate as possible. We know, just because of who we are, we know that the jacket is a Wested standard off the rack. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
But the main piece that a lot of people are still wondering is who made the hat. The hat of Great Circle is very interesting in the fact that it has many qualities of a Last Crusade, but many qualities of a very loosely pinched Raiders.
Correct.
But, and this is the most important thing, but in a lot of the lighting of the game with how it's lit in various situations, the hat, I noticed, is not strictly the sable that we know it to be.
It definitely does have a deeper sable in some scenes, and then in other scenes, it's like the lightest sable that Indy probably has ever worn in the franchise.
Exactly.
And so it is definitely mind-boggling to really pinpoint, okay, one, who did make the hat, and two, who out there right now is the most accurate maker to try and replicate this fedora.
Right now, I would say that the most accurate, because they're really the only ones doing it, is Steele & Jones.
Yes.
We've seen the photos, we've talked about them. It's a pretty dang good looking hat.
Yeah.
However, if you do not wish to go the Steele & Jones route, we do have several other options. Number one, there is Garrison Hatters.
David Garrison, this is his new line of rabbit fur, and the previous line of rabbit, as well as his beaver, one were more of a lighter chocolate, as well as, especially his rabbit, they had like a redder tone. And when he well, twofold. One, I knew that he was able to make a head that would, or a hat size that would accommodate my giant head. And two, I just really, really loved the new felt color and the Raider shape that he does, because he worked really closely with Steve Delk, the late great Steve Delk, who worked on the fedoras for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So upon receiving this fedora, you know, it was kind of a blessing in disguise, like a happy accident, because after seeing more and more trailer footage, and at the time that I received this hat, because I received this hat while I was on tour, and I thought to myself, wow, if I just loosened the pinch ever so slightly,
That's a great circle fedora.
this is an absolute clean, great circle fedora. And we have a lot of close-up shots of these.
Yes, we do.
And I think what Steele & Jones especially does well in is replicating that pinch, because it's definitely not like a Crusade or Crystal Skull pinch. It's a very tight pinch on the top.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably indicative of the game rendering, and the way that the character is able to grab the fedora and put it on his head in the video game. It's as a game designer, that's probably incredibly difficult.
Something that somebody pointed out, and I love this because it's such a blink and you'll miss it moment, where you start up the game. Indy will take off his hat, he'll fix his hair, and then he'll put it back on, but in putting it back on, it goes straight into the first person perspective. Somebody noticed that if you pause it at the right time, Machine Games rendered the sweatband to have a crease all around, meaning the sweatband had been folded at one point.
Wow.
Which is accurate to a Raiders fedora, because Harrison folded the sweatband.
Right.
So it's nice to think that at some point Indy probably got the hat reblocked, they took out the fold in the sweatband, because like, why did he do that? And it's just still sitting there. I love that little detail.
Amazing.
I think that's fantastic.
Well, again, it goes to show you that it's a game made by fans for fans.
Exactly.
We're going to say that a lot in this video, because it rings incredibly true.
Now, before we continue, how much did you pay for that Garrison?
Oh my goodness, it was over a year ago now, but I believe it was, don't quote me on this, I think it was somewhere on the lines of $325 to $350.
Okay. So, for some folks, you might not be able to afford that. We do have a more economic, budget-friendly hat choice, which is the Advantage Harrison. The wonderful thing about the Advantage Harrison line is that it comes in 3 distinct colors. You have True Sable, you have Sable 23, and then you have a standard sable color. I believe that this hat is in the standard sable. But what's so wonderful about it, this is in a Crystal Skull configuration. But what's so nice is that with having naturally worn this hat quite often and grabbing it by the pension and putting it on my head, it has developed a very great circle type bash. I think the only thing I really need to do is futz with the brim just to slightly
Only
and
slightly.
Slightly curve it.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing about the Great Circle Fedora is that all of the indie hats, aside from Crystal Skull, are very well known for having particularly shaped brim styles.
Yeah.
Whether it's the swoopage of the Raiders, the cowboy curl of the Last Crusade, there's always some kind of interesting styling going on. Great Circle has very minor futzing with the brim, and it is another interesting detail.
Well, the rumor mill is, and you know, this hasn't been proven, so you know, you take all of this with a grain of salt. Is that for official licensing purposes, perhaps, who knows? The rumor mill is that the creatives over at Machine Games, as far as like the motion capture and the design and everything like that, used a Dorfman Pacific fedora. Now, obviously, the game designers went in and were just like, okay, obviously this does not look the part, and so in doing so, they had the scan of the Dorfman Pacific, and then they 3D rendered from that and altered the fedora to make it look as it is in the video game now.
That's fantastic.
That's the rumor mill. Don't quote us on that. It hasn't been proven, so it's all hearsay. But that's what I've been hearing, and if that's true, just like you said, that is incredible.
Yeah. But the pricing of the Advantage Harrison, the wonderful thing about the Harrison line is that it tends to run pretty cheap. With European indies cosplayers, you're looking at roughly, I think last time I checked it was about 163, 180.
If that, yeah.
And then of course for Americans, when you factor in import fees and transition from one currency to another, you're looking at roughly $200. But I'm going to tell you something. This I've owned for almost 3 years now. This is a very sturdy piece. It still has a lot of nice stiffness to it, but I don't wear it that often. The color is fantastic, and what's nice about it is that because these hats aren't scene specific, they're more sort of what I would call idealized hats. You can really get away by using these for kind of all around. Oh, I can use this as a Destiny fedora, I can use this as a Great Circle fedora, or if you were to curl the brim just enough, you could pass this off as a really nice Last Crusade.
Yeah.
So there is always other options. I would always recommend Advantage because the fact of the matter is Tomas makes very excellent hats. Even his factory hats have wonderful quality, because this one is a very rare one that he doesn't do much anymore. This was I think more than certain that this was the 50-50 blend of Rabbit and Beaver, which doesn't do anymore. I think now it's just like 2080, 2070, but this is just such a fine hat. And so if you're looking to don your head with a proper looking fedora, I would recommend either Steel & Jones, Advantage, or Garrison.
Garrison.
That's also an Advantage.
It also.
Wonderful Advantage Raiders. So, now that we've talked about the important part, the hat, we need to go on to the jacket, the other most recognizable piece of Indies gear.
Right.
As we said before, it has been very clear through the behind-the-scenes videos and just the other marketing that the jacket worn by Indiana Jones in the Great Circle is a wested, standard, off-the-rack Raiders of the Lost Ark jacket. And we know this for many reasons. Number one being the fact that it has D-rings in place of the roller buckles. And just the overall body shape, how it drapes, the way that the collar kind of acts when it's sitting down, or in very rare cases where the game renders it kind of sitting up for a second and then coming back down. It's very indicative of being a wested Raiders.
Right.
Now, the one that I'm wearing is made of goat skin, which, you know, while the cut is correct, the skin is not. And one jump cut later, we have Mr. Morgan Lauff wearing a beautiful Wested Raiders.
Yes, this is a Wested Raiders that I use as a truck chase Cairo in Shrunken Lamb, and I am probably the biggest advocate of Shrunken Lamb for when it comes to Wested Raiders specifically.
It's got a lovely color.
Yes,
It looks amazing. When you wet mold it, it has such fantastic lines.
and it was much more weathered when I first received this.
Yes.
And due to the hurricane force weather last January, if you're a native of Southern California, I had one of my buddies from the Bluey Tour wear this for an event on the Queen Mary, and we all were just absolutely drenched with hurricane-like rain and winds and whatnot, and so a lot of the weathering had disappeared, but it's slowly but surely coming back. But going back to the Great Circle, there was no question in my mind when I saw the renderings of the jacket. I was just like, that's a Shrunken Lamb. Upon seeing the game more and more, I think it's definitely a thicker cut because Shrunken Lamb is a very thin hide. But suffice to say that the way that I feel that this jacket drapes on me and behaves and everything like that, and with the shaping of the pockets, and of course weathering, you know, that's in the eye of the beholder and the weatherer, so that's at their discretion. But I feel for me that Wested provides probably the most accurate Great Circle jacket.
Absolutely.
And again, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's all but confirmed that Wested.
Pretty much, yeah.
So it's like, without actually saying that they did, you know, we will say, without a shadow of doubt, get a jacket from Wested.
And be sure that when you do get yourself a Wested Raiders jacket, because this is a detail that not many people notice, the zipper is brass, not the standard nickel that you see on every other jacket in the series.
Right.
This is now one of the only indie jackets to ever have a brass zip closure.
Right.
And I find that to be so interesting. One of my favorite things that I learned was that the weathering of the Great Circle jacket was not on the jacket that they scanned.
Correct.
They weathered the jacket in engine.
Like how they shaped the hat.
Yeah, and weathered the hat in engine
Yeah.
too. That to me is incredible, that they spent time making sure that all of these little scratches and scuffs and, you know, darker portions of the leather are rendered out for cutscenes or for those rare third-person shots, because it just lends more authenticity to the render of Indy in game, and it looks fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. There's not really there is not a bad angle of Indy, and trust us, we scoured and looked.
We look.
Like, we pay attention to that stuff, and they leave no stone unturned when it comes to that kind of detail. And I, again, kudos to the developers and the designers, because that is no easy feat.
I think the only negative in the terms of how Indy is rendered in game is that the sleeves of his jacket are just slightly too small.
Yeah.
And I mean by like an inch.
Right.
Because the very normal thing about an Indy jacket is that the sleeves are always very long. You don't see the cuffs too often when he's kind of out and about doing his thing. And very famously, whenever you hang up an Indy jacket, the sleeves always have that wonderful drape past the body. I kind of wish I had brought my US wings. I don't know why I didn't, because that has such a beautiful drape when it's just hung up on a proper wooden hanger.
There were some rumors that US Wings was also the maker.
I've heard that one too, and I won't lie. If that was true, it would make sense. The reason I don't believe that is because in the shots where you can see Indy's back, that action pleat, the Dorito shape as we usually call it, is so indicative of Wested.
100%.
God bless US Wings. Their kangaroo jacket, what I have, that is like the perfect Indy cut inside and out. but a standard U.S. Wings has a very straight
Right.
action pleat.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, with the details that we do look at, screenshots, it's very clear the jacket is wested.
Yeah.
So in terms of pricing for wested, depending on what you do, many standard off-the-rack jackets are about $300 roughly.
Right.
If you want to get some more tailored cuts, that's going to run up the price a little bit. Like if you want, like what I've got, 2 extra pockets, because normally a standard wested jacket only has the 1 pocket here. This is a secondary pocket that usually costs about like $5 more.
Right.
If you need a longer cut in the jacket, that's gonna, I think that's another $5. So overall, it's very much just like what's in your budget. The nice thing about wested though is that because it is such a standard jacket, you can find a lot on eBay for roughly $200.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Or if you have friends in the community who are wanting to thin out their collection.
That's how I got this jacket.
That's how I got this jacket. He got his as a gift, and I got mine for $50. So,
You only paid $50 for that?
Well, that and a few other things in a box, yeah.
Dang, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the pricing varies, and that's one of the wonderful things about the indie jacket is that it is a readily available coat to purchase.
Right, and especially if you get a, and I believe this is still true, if you get a standard stock wested, the turnaround time is like...
Oh, it's ridiculously quick.
Yeah.
Because like with custom westeds, they take a little bit of time because they're trying to get it right. That is the one thing I will always give Steele and Jones is the fact that they keep sending you the cotton blanks to be like, does this fit correctly? Does that fit correctly?
Right.
But with wested, it's always, they want to try and get it right. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's the nature of the beast. But yeah, standard stock, off-the-rack westeds are always cheaper, always shipped quickly, and I've rarely heard anyone complain about an off-the-rack wested.
Why not invest your time in the company that not only made the jackets for the original trilogy, but allegedly made it for the game.
Now with all that out of the way, because we could talk about the jacket for hours, let's move on to the shirt. The shirt maker is unknown.
Correct.
I personally, just from looking at it, from the 3D model of Temple of Doom Indie that we have, where we can see, the one epaulette that's still connected to the shoulder, to me, I think Machine Games probably got an older styled Azuma shirt and scanned it. Just the way that it acts in the light, the way that it contrasts against the jacket, the button color especially just screams like a 2017, 2018 run Azuma. And it makes me very sad to say that because Azuma is now going out of business.
Not to say that you can't find Azuma shirts
Oh,
flying
no,
around
absolutely
anywhere,
not,
but-
because Azuma was the gold standard of screen-accurate indie shirts.
Oh, yeah.
To me, in my eyes, it's not what price glory because the color is too light. And with standard what price glories, they very much try to go for that Temple of Doom Last Crusade stone color, that hard stone gray. As to where in Great Circle, they're going more for a Streets of Cairo color, which I like, because that keeps a little bit of cohesion between it being directly after Raiders.
Right. Who's to say that Wested didn't provide the shirts as well?
If it is a Wested Raiders, wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
It'd be very cool that Indy is rocking out with a Wested shirt and jacket, because then, Wested could say, we are as screen accurate gets because Great Circle. And that's really great too. So if that's the case, so be it. It's just my mind's eye sees it being an older Azuma. If it is Wested, once again, the Wested shirts are only about $50.
Yes.
So that's a very nice economic choice. The thing about Azumas is that if you do find an Azuma, now that he's closed down shop, unfortunately, I think the secondhand market's going to get a little bit more expensive. What is nice, though, is that Corellian Dry Goods is starting to come up, and he's starting to perfect his craft, and I've seen a lot of his shirts, and I'm going to tell you something. He's getting better.
He's getting much, much better. And the thing that I really like about Corellian Dry Goods that in respect to Great Circle, because you had mentioned how darker the buttons are.
Yes.
In the Great Circle, and I think even with his Cairo cuts and his Raiders cuts, his buttons are darker. The buttons that he provides for those shirts are darker. So if you are looking for, and Adam, if you're listening to this and you're interested in making a Great Circle type shirt, we'll buy it. So I think Carolean with his shirts, that, you know, sizing is a little bit tricky. So, you know, make sure you do a really banger job, and he's great with his customer service.
Oh
so.
man, his customer service is just like through the roof perfect.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're gonna talk about pants here in a little bit, but he's the go-to guy when it comes to that stuff.
The nice thing about shirts is that no matter where you go, you're always going to find them for different prices. If you want to stick with What Price Glory, that's about $60, $70. They're great shirts. I have 3 of them. The only problem I have is that they are very thick.
Right.
The nice thing about Carolean, the wonderful thing about Azuma, is the beautiful thing about Wested is that they are all very thin shirts.
Yes.
Because they are made with the jacket in mind.
Very much so.
There's also costume-based shirts.
I was
Those
just
are
gonna
getting
mention-
better.
Yes.
Those are very cheap. Those are roughly $40. You can find them on Amazon. Kirk has wonderful videos showing how you can weather them up, make the buttons look better. And, you know, now that I think about it, if you were to switch out the buttons, the Disney shirt would make a really good
Absolutely.
Great Circle shirt.
I think it is just on that spectrum of almost being too light. But the way that it's constructed and everything like that, especially with the right jacket, you wouldn't be disappointed with a Disney Parks Indiana Jones shirt
And they've
for Great Circle.
changed the fabric, so it's a lot softer now.
That's good.
Because the initial run that I have, it sometimes sounds like a suede jacket when I'm wearing it. With the new run of shirts that they've done for the Disney, they're much softer cotton instead of being a poly mix, which is great because that also will limit shrinking.
Yeah.
Because poly shrinks like a mofo. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a bigger guy. Now that we've talked about shirts, pants. I think the pants are going to be the easiest thing, which is the 2 main options are Wested and Carolean.
Yeah.
Because especially with the majority of what we've seen in game, they look very much like the standard stock Wested trousers.
Yeah.
They have that very typical Last Crusade TOD coloring to them. So it's not the officer pink style. It's more of the like nearly brown.
Yeah. I personally think that the Carolean wool blend Cairo
Would be a perfect choice.
in my opinion. Yeah, I think they would be a perfect choice, not only in the color but the drape and the way that the pockets are shaped.
The pockets are big thing.
Yeah, it's got this very specific scallop, and you see that in Great Circle. And they do a really good job in scalloping the pockets, and it's very seldom that you see the pockets in Great Circle, but when you do, it's very indicative of a Raiders.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think Carolean Dry Goods with their wool blend trousers for Raiders, period.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I wouldn't go anywhere else unless you find a pair of vintage Todd's costumes. But you know,
That's a holy grail of cosplaying altogether. The nice thing is that they range between, because what did you pay for your Caroleans?
well, I got lucky because I jumped on the pre-order bandwagon.
That's right,
when
you
when
did.
he was first starting to. So I believe I only paid maybe like $85.
Yeah, and I don't think they're much higher than that. I think they're roughly $100 now.
Yeah, somewhere along that line.
And I know that Wested is 80.
80, and then 80. I think 80 pounds.
Yeah.
And then you gotta account for shipping and everything like
Or
that.
Visa,
So
you're roughly looking at like $110.
could be the same price as a Carolean.
Could be, yeah.
But yeah, definitely. If you have any questions, you go on wested.com or you go on Adam Carolean's Etsy page. He also has I believe he has an Instagram and Facebook.
He has an Instagram and a Facebook.
So definitely contact them.
We've moved from the upper body to the lower body. And then, of course, after the pants, there's the boots.
Right.
Now, the thing about the indie boots in Great Circle that I noticed is that they are very clearly Aldens.
Yes.
They are Alden 405s, no doubt about it.
And they're dark.
They are very dark.
Mm-hmm.
They're like my Wested adventure boot dark.
Right.
And I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah.
But they have some very nice weathering on the toes. You know, if you ever look down in game, there's just some nice subtle weathering. So that's nice. So if you want to get very screen accurate Great Circle boots, but you don't want to break the bank with Aldens, I mean, you can get secondhand because they're usually cheaper secondhand. Like the Aldens that I'm wearing off camera here, they were $300 flat.
Yeah.
The Aldens that you have off camera, what did those cost you?
I found them on Poshmark. I found them Poshmark for close to $400. And again, you know, we both got lucky because they're vintage conduct lining, so you know it's all
super
the
comfortable
bells and whistles of an Alden boot that any indie cosplayer would crave.
They're both the Raiders pumpkin color, which is a very sought after color in the terms of the boots.
Yeah.
But if you want to have that very, very dark Alden color, I would actually suggest going with the Wested boots.
Yeah.
Because they're $80 roughly, especially if you go through Etsy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're much cheaper. The only thing I will say is that if you do get the Wested boots, wear them for a while. Because they are made of very stiff, stout leather. My ankles hurt for the longest time when I was rocking around with them as just a daily boot. But once you get them broken in, once you condition them a couple times and get them to, you know, the proper shape of your foot and your ankle, because they are ankle boots, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
They are tanks.
Yeah, they are. I had a pair for a very brief time before I had a pair of Aldens. I also think, you know, if you're able to find a pair of Alden 403s.
Yes, which are
like
the
on
darker
eBay.
color.
Yeah, they're a darker color. Same exact construct as an Alden 405. It's just a different color.
Yeah.
But if you're able to find a secondhand pair of Alden 403s, I think those specifically for Great Circle would be perfect.
Those would be perfect for Great Circle. I wouldn't be surprised if they're actually Alden 403s and not 405s. Because again, they're the same. They're literally the same boot. It is just the leather coloring that's used.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yep.
That's why a lot of indie cosplayers, especially when I was first starting out, were rocking 403s. Because number one, they were cheaper because they weren't the indie boot. They were just the most adjacent one. And two, they were more readily available to find.
Right.
The difficulty that I have, and this is a difficulty that I've spoken to with many cosplayers, is that I have very big feet. I'm a size 13. So finding vintage Aldens, finding Alden 403s of any kind, that's tough when you're looking for bigger sizes. Morgan, you're a 9, right?
9.5.
9.5. That's a much more standard size shoe.
We got to add in that extra half. I have to make that very clear.
It's important.
Very important.
That the extra half is put in there. So it's much more easier for you to find your shoe size than it is for me.
Yeah, you know, hindsight's 20/20. You know, yes, to your point, but it's also kind of dangerous when you see a crap ton of Aldens that are listed on eBay in your size, and you're just like, oh, I could buy that, I could buy that, I could buy that.
Yeah.
You could, but you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, when you're somebody like me who has a bigger foot and you find a pair, you're like, I gotta jump on it, but I gotta make sure it's the right pair.
Yes.
I was very lucky with the ones that I got here that are off screen. They'd never been worn. They were tried on, and that was it.
Right.
And then the guy sold them to me for $300, and I've been wearing them pretty much daily since. They are just fantastic boots. I love Aldens, but I love the Westeds. And if you cannot get either the Wested or the Alden, there is, of course, the Bostonians. I will forever sing the praises of the Bostonian boots. They're becoming weirdly rare in the brown color. The black, you can find them all the time.
Right.
But the brown, which is like a perfect LC color, especially when you polish it up.
Mm-hmm. And you can darken them.
And you can darken them. They're fantastic boots. So I will always sing the praises of Bostonians. And if you can find them, they're usually much cheaper. They're like $70, $60. I got my pair off Amazon for $40. And I still have those boots. I just don't wear them as often as I used to because it's like, I have Altons.
Right.
So yeah, there's that. And then next we have the belts.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty simple if you're savvy with Indiana Jones cosplay already, and you know, judging by if you've made it in this video this far, then you are. So you already have these belts. I think the two big indicators are, one, he is wearing a Raiders gun belt.
He is.
And you can find those anywhere, any leather maker, Spade Archer,
Wested, What Price Glory used to sell them for a while.
They still do.
Okay,
and you can find them on eBay as well.
Yes.
This is a What Price Glory belt. I have sung praises for this belt for years and years and years, and it was under $40. So, so what price or whatever Raiders gun belt you have, it's going to work for Great Circle.
I had once found a really great, close enough, that I still use for my gun belt off Amazon for $20.
Right.
And it had the correct horseshoe style belt loop, which is very important when it comes to indie. You know, a lot of people go with the square belt loops, and it's like, yeah, that's correct for like LC, and it needs to be brass.
Right.
But when it comes to Raiders specifically, it needs to be this nickel horseshoe style belt loop.
And again, you know, you already have this in your closet, so you know, a big thing about the web belt. Two big things. One, always get a vintage buckle.
They just look better and they work better.
So readily available.
The important thing about the belts is what hangs on them, which is the holster and the whip holder.
Yes.
Now, I want to go with the whip holder first, because what I noticed about the whip holder is that it's a very Temple of Doom Last Crusade style whip holder. I don't have mine for some reason. I've got my replica Creasing Colo, made by Trent Ryan, but it's like almost black. It's a very rounded top, single stud, push stud. Again, you most likely already have that in your wardrobe. If not, standard Raiders will do fine. You know, that's such a small detail that most people don't notice anyway. So there's that. The holster, that's the most interesting discrepancy in the fact that it takes place 1 year after Raiders of the Lost Ark, but Indy is rocking around with a Webley style holster.
And it holds
his Smith & Wesson. Now we both, Morgan and I, both own the artsy one Smith & Resin 1917s. Wow, yours is so much more different than mine. I never noticed that before. Dang.
Yeah.
But these are absolutely excellent pieces if you can ever find them on the secondhand market. I see these pop up on eBay from time to time, and I say if you find them, grab them.
Right.
Because not only is this just a perfect replica of Indy's firearm from Raiders, it also is his firearm in Great Circle. So it's nice to see this again.
The funny thing about the Smith & Wesson in the Great Circle that I noticed, and I'll go into detail as to, you know, other than Artsy One where you can find a good Smith & Wesson replica, is that the Smith & Wesson, because
it fits, but not very well.
If you have ever seen a Smith & Wesson in person, you'll know that on the woodstock of the handle of the gun, there are embossed logos of the Smith & Wesson trademark.
Yeah, they're the Smith & Wesson
it's the SW
grip coins.
Yeah,
essentially.
So on the grip of Indy's pistol in the Great Circle, they have those embossed coins, but it's different letters because I don't think Smith & Wesson was able to either
give their blessing or
grant sponsorship or whatever, or if a video game wanted to even pair or partner with a firearms company. But I just thought that was an interesting Easter egg. Now, with
Well, you didn't mention that they had changed the lettering from S&W, Smith & Wesson, to B&W,
oh
meaning Bethesda.
yeah,
I have 2 Webley holsters here because this is very important. So you can either go the replica route. This is a beautiful, and I mean beautiful, TOD-LC Webley holster made by the talented hands of Spade Archer Leather. Roger is just a very wonderful leather worker. I love his stuff. This is my second piece of Spade Archer work. I have that, and then I have my Last Crusade satchel strap. So I just love his work, and I'm very happy to have that. But if you want to go with a more like hardcore style of authenticity, you can get a vintage Webley holster. Now this one is very special to me, and I don't actually use it for cosplay because of its age and just how I feel about it. But this is a vintage 1918 Webley holster. This was given to me by Trent Ryan. He has taken expert care of it, and it is just that perfect color of dark brown, almost black, that I feel the indie holsters need for something like Great Circle or Temple of Doom or Last Crusade.
Gorgeous.
I know.
Yeah, I did some close-up shots with these, so you'll be able to take a look. But very much to Nathan's point, oh man, this is so beautiful.
Isn't it?
This is so beautiful. Very much to Nathan's point, it's what you have already. So if you have these already, then you're set to go. Going back to the Smith & Wesson really quick, a big thing that I noticed is this. I don't even know his name. It's the new guy that's making a Smith & Wesson 3D printed. And he's got this box set.
I don't know his name either, but he has been. He is becoming a hero to the cosplay community because he has created this beautiful 3D printed Smith & Wesson that has a working cylinder, and you can take out individual bullets, and he's got 3 packages right now. He has the economy package, which I think is like $100 or $200, and that's the Smith & Wesson in its box, certificate of authenticity, and it comes with some other goodies. The next step up is like $200, comes with all the same, but a few extra good stuff. And then the third tier not only comes with the box, the certificate, but it's got a whole bunch of like Indy's personals, like his ID, his driver's license, all this cool stuff, plus a box to hold spare ammo. Right. That has been made to look like a vintage Smith & Wesson ammo box that you could buy at the time.
Wow.
Like the amount of work that he's put into this BAPD is incredible.
Love that.
So if you can, if
you haven't had it, if you don't have it already, I recommend it.
Yeah, I will put his name like at the bottom when I find it. I'll put a link to his Facebook posts because it has been amazing to watch this journey. Right? And then there is the Grail, aside from owning an actual M1917, and that is Tanaka. And Tanaka has 2 variants. They have the plastic variant, which looks fantastic.
The heavyweight one.
The heavyweight, beautiful.
Fully functional,
Yeah, it has a working cylinder, you can take out the bullets, and then there's the one that everybody wants, which is the higher priced Tanaka, and it is actually metal. It's blued like an actual Smith & Wesson should be, has the proper weight of a Smith & Wesson. It is just one of the most beautiful,
it's perfect,
airsoft guns I've ever seen. And even then, like I put airsoft gun in quotes because really it's a stage combat gun.
Yeah.
Because you can put blanks into the bullets and make it fire, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But it costs an arm and a leg. Like last time I saw one of those Tanakas on a website, it was like $850.
You can buy an actual used
and most
real.
likely demilled
Yeah.
M1917 for that much.
Yeah. So, you know, if you have that kind of money to spend, more power to you.
But there's that, and then with the holsters, if you want to, if you're one of those people who wants to be a stickler and stick with the Raider style holster, you can do that, and you can darken it up. And the nice thing about these holsters is that they're everywhere.
Yeah.
You can go to What Price Glory to get the Webley holsters. You can go to Magnolia Clothiers, I think, still sells holsters.
Roger at Spade Archer Leather.
Roger Spade Archer Leather. If you're lucky, you can find, like, this was gifted to me. This is a very old Todd's Costumes Raiders holster, and to me, I don't think I've ever seen a better Raiders holster.
I agree.
And that's saying a lot because I've seen a lot of really great Raiders holsters. The nice thing about the Todd's Costumes is that they weather naturally. Like, you don't have to do anything. I remember talking to Trent about this. I was like, I love the weathering you did on this. He said, I didn't do anything to that. There's a lot of places to get the holsters. There's no like, oh, this is kind of a difficult piece to get. So yeah, holsters, guns. Now,
The supersonic boomers.
well, before we get on to the supersonic boomers, I think I almost forgot the satchel.
Yeah.
Now the satchel is very interesting because it is very clearly a WG.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that it's a WG because it has the brass fixtures on the rings instead of the standard nickel that you see on every other Mark 7 gas mask bag.
Right.
And it's so great. But what I noticed is that it is the same beautiful military green that we all love. And with the strap that Indy wears, it is a standard Raider strap, but I noticed it kind of takes on some of the elements of TOD Crusade.
Yeah.
In the fact that it, like, how slim it is and how dark it is, but the buckle, beyond the shadow of a doubt, is a Raiders buckle.
all the way. All the way.
So I'm just getting that out of the way. This is the simplest thing. It's kind of one of the reasons we glossed over it.
Yeah.
But like, if you have a WG with the brass fixtures, you're even more screen accurate than you know.
True.
And it's funny to say screen accurate about a video game, but you know. So yeah, now we're going to talk about the supersonic boomers. The thing about the whip in Great Circle is that really you can just use a standard Raiders whip. It has a lot of. I would say that it has a lot of. Yeah, let's get your whip out here so we can take a look at that beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I brought my Joe string because why not?
Well, the whip that I would use if I were to cosplay Great Circle is my 2019 David Morgan, and it's an 8-footer. Obviously, it's an Indiana Jones whip. It's not a Raider style. It's not a style in any particular film or franchise or what have you. But in all of the screenshots that I have seen, and let's give credit where credit is due to not only the developers who were painstakingly working on getting the whip mechanics right, but the person who made sure that the whip mechanics did what it needed to do. Gentleman from Witchcraft Whips, Johnny Ogren, who he's credited in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle as the whip consultant.
That's amazing.
And well done, Johnny. Like,
yeah.
if you're watching this, you know better than any of us, like, what the mechanics are for a whip. He creates whips inside and out, all kinds, and he's really great at making Indiana Jones bullwhips. But you know, just the way that the whip behaves and the sound effects, because they were recorded with him cracking.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about the whip is that, you know, in most Indiana Jones video games, you hit the whip button, he cracks the whip once, and then he puts it away. With Great Circle, if you keep your hand held on the whip button, Indy will just kind of stand there with the whip uncoiled, and then you can mess around with it. Like, you can run around, and the whip reacts like an actual whip would. It coils up on itself, it drags when you run. It looks great.
Fantastic.
So they did a very wonderful job. One of my favorite details that somebody pointed out was when it sits on his belt, he has it in a style that we don't see Indy do very often, which is, yeah, it sits, and Harrison did this style where it sits with the handle kind of pointed outward like that. He only really did that in the Well of Souls, and it was that way. But that's such an interesting detail.
Yeah.
But what I love so much is that somebody pointed out whenever you use the whip and he puts it back on his belt, if he's climbing or something, it's not coiled up. It just kind of hangs there very loosely. And that's a really wonderful detail that they put into to add an air of authenticity.
Right. And I also love, just commenting on the game itself. I just love how much of a necessity the whip is in the game.
Yes!
Like,
because they understood, if you're playing an Indiana Jones game, everyone wants to use the whip.
100%.
So you can use it as a weapon. You can use it as a defensive item. You can use it to climb. You can use it to swing.
Yep.
You can use it to grab items like switches that you can't reach.
You could use it to take items from people.
And it really just like they sat down. It feels like the first thing they talked about was, okay, we're making an Indiana Jones game. What are we going to have them do with the whip?
Exactly.
And it's great. So we've talked about the whips. Let's talk about the handheld items of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, because you have, and I'm very jealous, you have two of the, what I would say, key items that Indy carries on his persons throughout the game.
Yeah, two, arguably the most specific to Great Circle. His camera and his lighter. And so the camera, and I've done some close-up shots of that, obviously this is one of, if not the most important item that you use in the game. And the camera that he uses is actually an Argus. He actually took a photo because there's film in there.
Oh, I did? Oh, jeez, I'm so sorry. Well, now you've got a really nice picture of your balcony.
But that's okay. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But
got it.
Anyway, it's an Argus Model A1.
Yes.
And
with just the slight variation that the back plate is painted a sort of army green color.
Like this.
Yeah, like his satchel. And it's really the only difference, that, and it has a zoom lens, which doesn't exist for another 70 years, but
right.
We're going to get all that. Other than that, the shape, the model, the Art Deco detailing is very indicative of the Argus Model A1.
And you can find these on eBay, whether they're functional or not. You can find them for less than $20.
Unfortunately, they've gone up in price because people are now knowing that the indie fans want them. I was looking at an Argus Model 1 that was only $30, and I was like, oh yeah, my next paycheck's going to come in, I'm just going to grab it, just to have one for the collection. And as soon as I went to go buy it, it had jumped up to $64.
Well, get it while you can, because those prices aren't going to stay that long. But...
And the nice thing about this is that it's such a great looking camera that really does fit the aesthetic of Indiana Jones.
Absolutely. And,
I noticed that the sound when I clicked is like nearly identical to the actual sound in the game.
They probably had one that they recorded the sound with.
Yeah, most likely.
But again, it's a very sort of, again, idiosyncrasy kind of thing, but when you have it, you know that it ups your cosplay. And if you could get a case for this as well, so that way you can hang it off your belt. I have one.
I saw one cosplayer who built a smaller style kind of whip holder for it.
That's
that
right.
Clipped into his belt loop.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like, because there's some screw fixtures that he probably used, but you could get creative. These cameras, they're not delicate, so you don't have to worry about throwing them around. But if you can find one that's in really good condition, like I did, definitely worth the buy.
So next, you said you have the lighter,
right?
Which this is probably one of my favorite things, because this lighter is also the same model and style that Marion has in Raiders.
That's right.
So it's kind of a nice little callback. The difference between the Great Circle lighter and the Raiders lighters. The Raiders lighter has, and we'll show it in the close-up, this kind of cross-hatched stippling effect all throughout. And what I noticed about the Great Circle one is that there is as you pointed out, a very nice etching on the side.
It's almost like enameled.
Yeah, sort of like an Alphonse Mucha style.
Very Art Deco.
Yeah, woman.
Yeah.
Dancing.
Oh, well, like Club Obi-Wan or something.
Yeah, and I got a picture of that, and I'll put that up so that they can get an idea of what we're talking about. And it's just such an interesting detail, because I remember when we first saw this, you had mentioned that's Marion's lighter.
Mm-hmm.
He still has Marion's lighter, and I thought, oh man, yeah, that's really cool. But where you get it in the game, I think is even better.
Right.
The fact that it's in Egypt and it's kind of Indy retracing his steps from Raiders again.
And if you're because this is an Austrian lighter. So if you're in the market, because I got this, and it's a vintage, and it works. And this is a very important thing. So if you're in the market, it's IMCO triplex super. It's the super model, because there is a junior model that's a little bit smaller than this, but you want to get the super model.
Well, everybody wants a super model,
Well,
but I mean, the super model of the lighter is what's important. Now. We have talked about the camera, we've talked about the lighter, but I'm sure that some of you have noticed that behind me and at the bottom of the screen we have two Chippewayan golden fertility idols.
Correct.
Now, of course, we know that at the beginning of the game you get to reenact what everyone has reenacted ever since they were a child who first saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, the famous idol grab and temple run. So the one that I have here is, I think, the Matchbox or Diamond Select Golden Idol piggy bank. And yes, I do have actual money in here because I do carry around a lot of spare change. This is...
You got that at box lunch, right?
I did. I got it at box lunch for like less than $20.
Yeah.
It's a fairly readily available piece. I do love it. It is slightly oversized and at times does have some weird dimensions. Alex Arnold, the indie guy, made a very wonderful short about this on his channel. I will leave a link in the description. Go check out Alex Arnold. He is a very enthusiastic indie collector who has, in my opinion, one of the most impressive officially licensed collections of any indie fan. But if you want a more accurate model, there is one of my favorite makers of all time, ever since I found him in 2022 Dark Matter props. I really want to get his Cross of Coronado.
Oh, yeah.
Because I saw Kirk and I saw Kevin Indiana Jones talk about it, and my God, I have never seen a more beautiful replicated version of that prop.
Yeah.
So this is the Golden Fertility Idol by Dark Matter Props. This is Morgan's, and so I'm going to let him talk about it.
Yep. It was a gift. It was a birthday gift, and very grateful for it. It went with me on tour. It's much to the discomfort and fear of my castmates on the bus. This sat on the bus on tour for the better part of a year.
Dang.
So it traveled with me all around America and all around Canada.
The weight on this is fairly light.
Yeah, it's hollow. It's definitely like a maybe like fiberglass.
I think
like a
so.
fiberglass resin. And again, you know, it's got a little bit of scuff and things like that. But what I wanted to say was that this finish, the finish on this, is the antique finish.
Yes,
that
because he always offers like a really nice satiny gold color, or the antique finish, which is a little bit more closer to what we see on screen.
I think this is more, you know, when you see it in person, it definitely looks dirty, but when you see it on camera and everything like that, I think
It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
There are many places where you can get the Chippewayan Golden Fertility Idol, but one of the pieces that I want to talk about is something that shows up in a later part of the game. So if you don't want spoilers, go ahead and skip to this timestamp to skip it. Otherwise, I want to talk about the headpiece to the Staff of Ra, which shows up in that really weird but so wonderfully made dream sequence, and you have to solve a puzzle that involves the Chippewayan Golden Fertility Idol, the cat mummy which began the entire adventure, and Marion's Staff of Ra headpiece. Now, what I noticed is that it's the very standard headpiece. It is not the Ravenwood bar version, which is one that a lot of us want.
This is the Imam.
This is the Imam. This is also Dark Matter props. This is his much nicer gold finish. So, like, compared to the Golden Idol, I think you could see, yeah, like this one shines crazy bright as to where this one is a nice duller gold. But I love this piece as it was one of the first real indie artifacts they ever got my hands on. The one in game is great, and I would not be surprised if it was either a Dark Matter props or a relic maker.
Yeah.
My heart says it's a relic maker.
Yeah, I
because
think
of the details.
Relic Maker is, you know, as far as pricing is concerned, is the highest price end, but it is the holy grail
of indie props.
Yeah.
If you ever want to get yourself a headpiece to the Staff of Ra, there are so many people who make them, but I would always suggest Dark Matter because they are still the cheapest. But with it being cheap, it doesn't mean it's skimping out on detail. There is that, and I think with that we have covered almost everything there is to doing as best as humanly possible until we can get full details, which I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
like full confirmations.
Full confirmation of how to make the most screen accurate Great Circle cosplay with what you either already have in your closet or what you want to buy if you're starting out, or if you just want to solely focus on doing Great Circle cosplay. Either way, we hope that this video has been informative, that you've enjoyed yourself, and that no matter what you do, you always have fun in this wonderful world of Indiana Jones cosplay, because really that's the most important thing. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Please follow California Jones 81 on Instagram.
Yes. California Jones 81 on Instagram, California Jones on Facebook. If you'd like to follow this guy, you can follow him on Instagram at Morgan Lauff a lot.
That's right.
Lauff spelled Lauff.
Yes.
So with that, we are going to end the video here. Thank you all so much for watching. We hope you've enjoyed. Bye, everybody.
You're still here? The video's over. What more could you possibly want to know? Oh, you want to know more about the Allmaker, the Allmaker stone and the Giant's pendant, and Marion's diary. How could we forget? Basically, to sum it up, obviously those items are made by a specific company or a vendor. Those were all probably studio made or made on the 3D rendering of the video game. However, there is one person who Nathan and I could collectively agree makes the best Allmaker stones, as well as the Giant's pendant, and that's Tiger Shark 2 Collectibles, Bruce. We talked about him earlier in the video, making the idols, making the Dial of Destiny, the Antikythera, just absolutely bar none. And he is arguably the only person on the market right now who makes that caliber quality. And for Great Circle memorabilia and props, that's the guy that you need to go to. Highly recommend him. And as far as Marion's diary is concerned, well, if you haven't received the collector's edition of the game, where it comes with the globe and it comes with one of the stones as well, so that also comes with the diary, and I don't think anybody's gonna want to sell that from their collector's edition pack. So try and maybe go to a Barnes & Noble, Amazon, just a simple brown leatherback diary, and then photocopy Marion's little note at the beginning of the diary, and you're good to go. So I think that covers it. Thanks for being patient with us. We'll see you in the next one.